Call the Town of Ayer Executive Board to order for Thursday, March 14th, 2024. In accordance with the provision of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, public bodies otherwise governed by the open meeting law are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings are held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure the public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by joining Zoom meeting ID 854-00324335 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at ATM at Ayer.MA.US or 978-772-8220 extension 100 prior to the meeting. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. So first item on the agenda is for our call to order is review and approval of the previous meeting minutes from February 15th. Robert distributed those this morning. I didn't have any changes to them.
No, me either. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second that.
All right. Roll call the vote. Ms. Antonellis.
Aye.
Mr. Friskowski.
Aye.
Ms. Tierney.
Aye.
Ms. Cooper.
Aye.
Mr. Pompriand.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. The minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on to the fiscal year 2025 budget updates.
So, Mr. Chair, just real quick for everybody, just a quick, everything remains on schedule, on track. A busy time of the year on the budget. Just a couple of upcoming highlights. On Tuesday at the select board meeting will also be the water and sewer rate public hearing. That's on the 19th at 6. The second public budget forum is going to be on March 27th. So we will be sending to the FinCom and to the select board, and it'll be in this publicly posted draft 3 of the budget on March 22nd, which we'll be using for that presentation. And then April 2nd, which is the select board meeting, will be a joint meeting to review and approve the warrant. And I hope to get a draft of the warrant to everyone in advance on that. And that remains under development. So unless I missed something, I know Barbara or Carrie have anything, or Carly on the budget update, but we're rapidly approaching the finish line.
Excellent. No, wonderful. Great work, everyone. Do appreciate it. I know January through April is always incredibly hectic. So very appreciative. All right. Moving on to an update on the ClearGov budget platform.
Yeah, I can give that update.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Harry and I everything is loaded in except a couple unique slides that we do for the budget book. So Barbara, Robert, and I and Carrie discussed what slides we just need to update. I can give you I'm just going to pull up the screen. I have it all loaded up. Give you don't need an abatement, but here we go. So can you see this, or are we on my email?
No, you can see it.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is the get rid of that. This is the version of the budget book. This is what the web preview looks like. You're also able to print it, and when you do print, you can I'll just show you. You can print what you want to see. So the free cash allocation stabilization, that's all still last year's number. We'll have that all updated by the 27th. So if you I'll just show, like, in departments, you can click in general government. You can see what our previous budgets were, the actual budgets, and then this will have, we've loaded already the 25 budget as it stands right now. Obviously it could change, and then we'll make the proper adjustments. And then you can go, let's just go into public safety, Ayer Police Department. So each department of the town has its own page, photo of the department head, a mission statement, function, services. And then you can go through and see, like I said, the historical spending. And then it breaks it down. You can really like curtail it to whatever you're looking for information. So we'll be able to launch this on March 27th at the budget forum. If larger departments, they have their organizational charts in there. And then I'll just go to like this free cash allocation. Obviously, this is last year's number, but as that's still pending right now, as soon as that's updated, we'll switch out these slides. But it's been, we have the history, we can curtail it basically to however we want. There's the org chart. So it's a digital version of what we were doing, but you can certainly get far more information out of this version than the previous. So that's good. And you can, again, tailor it to what you're looking for. So Carrie and I and Barbara, Robert will continue to work on it, and it'll be ready in 2 weeks.
It looks pretty slick, I have to say. Kurt?
Thank you.
I second Scott's assessment, and kudos for all. That's a lot of work, I'm sure, behind the scenes. Just real quick, can you actually see the numbers behind the graphs?
Yes, you can. And
Okay.
Carrie,
I figured I
You
just.
pull it back up again,
Yeah.
Carly?
yeah,
So if you go back into just go into the police department.
yeah, you see
If
it?
you scroll all the way down,
Yeah,
it's where, oh, you went too quick. It says spreadsheet breakdown.
my
If you click
gosh.
on that, it will pull up
The whole
Wow.
sheet.
actuals.
yep.
Yeah.
Boy, the accountant part of me is just going, wow.
And then if you
We
wanna,
know where Kurt's gonna spend all of his time.
yeah, exactly. And so you can make the charts however you prefer to
Mhm.
see them. So
And this is going to be open to the public?
Mhm.
yes, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they can't change any numbers.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Talk about transparency.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all gonna be there.
Excellent.
Thank you.
No,
Yep.
thanks, everyone. We've been going down this road for what, 3-4 years now?
Yep.
Trying
It
to
started
get this
right
going.
before the pandemic, then
Yeah.
we got delayed. So Mr. Chair, just through you, want to thank Carrie and Carly and Barbara, as well as everybody's patience. On the 27th, we're gonna roll it out. We're gonna use it for part of the forum presentation. Then I envision we'll be coming to the FinCom. Kurt would be happy to come to the FinCom and do a more in-depth, we'll call it a training or orientation, do a similar thing for the select board. And the nice thing is we can continue to tailor it and evolve it as we move forward. So, and all of you, Scott, Kurt, that love this kind of stuff, we're open to, suggestions as to what works, what doesn't. There's also one last thing I'll add. There's a component Carly was telling me about for capital that we'll be able to do the capital forms and the capital process somewhat electronic as well. So it definitely does take, though we have been very transparent, it does take it to the next level of that. So good job, everyone.
Yeah, and I think if I could, Mr. Chair, just add
Please.
when we go live with the capital piece of that, department heads can come on that website, submit their projects, upload one document. They don't have to make 90 copies for everyone. It's going to be much more streamlined and efficient for everyone. So we're looking forward to rolling that out for sure.
Yeah. They can use it right on the Mondo pad, but meetings can use it too. So that's good.
No, that's great. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Anything else for ClearGov before we move on? No. All right. Next item is discussion on proposed recommended uses for free cash.
So, Mr. Chair, so number 5 on the agenda for free cash and number 6, a proposal on ARPA funds sort of go together. So I have 2 brief presentations. They will be posted to the budget page. Literally just finished them about 10 minutes ago. Otherwise, they would have been up in advance. So let's just start with the free cash and I have a slide here. So on the second slide, so this is for, so we have just over 1.6 million in available certified free cash. And like I did as last year, so that you see that on the top. And then we listed some of the main items. The first one, the opioid funds, the 7,924. So these are the funds we've received so far from the class action lawsuits. When we received them last year, because we hadn't set up, and many hadn't, a special revenue fund, they fell to free cash. So at the town meeting, there's an article to create a special revenue fund for the opioid fund and to transfer the 7,924 into that fund. So that's sort of the just a small amount. The second item, as everyone knows, per the policy, the OPEB, is a total of 300,000. Barbara has calculated we'd need 135,000 from free cash, and the balance of 165,000 will be coming from the meals tax. The next one that's highlighted, and it's highlighted for a reason because we're going to talk about it on the other presentation. There's always a surprise in every budget process. And this is the Minuteman Neshoba Health Group's final FY24 bill. We'll get into this in a minute. They're in the process of dissolving, and this is the portion, and we literally just got this, the portion that we owe for the dissolving of the Minuteman Neshoba Health Group. So that's $310,512. I'll come back to that in a minute, but I just put that under here under the free cash, but we have choices and options. And then this again for capital stabilization would be 750,000 and then 474,000 to stabilization. Now you may want to give you two numbers from Kerry. Stabilization as of today is just over 3.5 million is the balance, and capital stabilization as of today is just over 5.2 million. So as we move through this, be thinking stabilization 3.5, capital's 5.2. As we've been doing historically, we've been putting more into capital given the size of the projects and so forth. As I note on the bottom, obviously the distribution amounts between capital and stabilization can be adjusted more or less in one fund versus the other. We just put this to start the discussion. The other two things I want to point out is the compensated balance account. You'll recall that's the one where the fund from town meeting for separation of service and so forth that we can fund those for. The DOR benchmark recommends that the balance be about 65,000. We checked, the balance is 72,000, so we're not recommending an article to put any additional funding in the compensated balance account. The only other thing that's missing of note, and we can discuss further here, is historically we've been forward funding the town's pension to the tune of $300,000 each year, and then every 2 years we realize the savings. With this Minuteman Neshoba Health Group bill, if we were to pay that from free cash, and we're going to get into a minute, there's some options. If we were to pay that from free cash, we would obviously probably not be able to do the forward funding of the pension assessment unless we, reduce some from capital or from stabilization. But this is just the first snapshot. Then I have a couple other slides to just walk us through. Are there any initial questions before we switch gears?
Robert?
Yeah.
So would these total disbursements, I'm calling them, reduce the 1.677 million?
Yeah, it would. What you see on the screen would use all of it.
Oh boy.
Would use all of the
Yep. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that Totals up? Oh, yeah. Okay. Never mind.
No,
Thank
fair
you.
question. And as Barbara advised this morning, just so everyone knows, because there is good news too, we obviously do not need any free cash to balance the budget. And we'll be getting everybody the updated budget tie-in sheet. So now I'm going to go to my other presentation, which ties into this with ARPA. So we'll pull that one up. Okay. So as of right now, per Carrie this morning, our current ARPA fund balance is $423,900. And as we've been saying all along, ARPA funds, they're under the purview of the select board. They must be committed and contracted by December 31st of 2024. So we're coming up, we get about 8 months. Recent developments on the federal level, as well as advice that Barbara has received from the town auditors, is that the remaining ARPA funds should be spent sooner than later. And Carly and I were on a call earlier in the week with the Congresswoman's office as we get the money for the bridge. This issue came up that, as my next two bullets, there's increased risk again of federal clawbacks of the funds. There's all this talk starting up again. So the sooner we can contract it, the better of risking to lose it. And ARPA funds cannot be encumbered or carried over after December 31st. So just some more volatility on that landscape. So the next slide. So, and this is just for discussion. So there are two things on the horizon. There's this purchase of 71 Sandy Pond Road, and there's this Minuteman Neshoba Health Group bill that we just got. I'll start with Sandy Pond Road. So if everybody recalls, this is still subject to town meeting approval, but there is an opportunity for the town to purchase it for $700,000, as you see here. The CPC has voted to send to town meeting an article that would authorize $350,000 from CPA funds towards the acquisition. So then that leaves $350 from town funds. And the two sources we're thinking on town funds are the UDAG, which is under the select board, and there's 3.1 million in there. And that is subject to replenishment by town meeting. And then there's these ARPA funds. So this scenario, proposal one, if we used ARPA for the balance for the 350,000, that would leave 73,900 left in ARPA. So this, think of scenario one is we would pay the town's portion from ARPA, and that would leave a small balance over the next 8 months. And we'll go to proposal two. Again, total purchase price 700. The CPA funds brings 350. This proposal would use 100,000 from ARPA, which would leave a balance of 323,900 in ARPA, and then would take 250,000 from UDAG, subject to future replenishment by town meeting. So in proposal two, using a little less of ARPA and using some from UDAG, and that would be replenished future town meeting. Then, so proposal three would use no ARPA funds and it just uses UDAG funds. So it would be 350 from CPA, 350 from UDAG, and as I said, there's a balance of 3.1 million, and then we could replenish that moving forward. So just, we're almost done and we'll circle back because I know there's a lot of options and questions. So that we have to come up with as a town soon is the funding plan for the town side, if you will, of 71 Sandy Pond. We're not recommending we use any free cash in this scenario, but I will throw out there, as you know, that is an option, but it would reduce the amounts to stabilization. So let's just take a look at this Minuteman Neshoba Health situation. So just to give some quick background, in August of 2023, the town's insurance advisory committee began looking at potentially leaving Minuteman Neshoba Health Group because of increased costs, increased assessments. Several towns had left over the last several years. There were several towns contemplating leaving last summer. So we started our process proactively. In October of 2023, on recommendation of the Insurance Advisory Committee, the Select Board voted to authorize the town to leave Minuteman Neshoba Health Group. And shortly after we issued that intent, several other towns began to follow, such as Pepperell and so forth, to the point that in December, the Minuteman Neshoba Health Group took a vote to completely dissolve by June 30th of 2024. So there's a whole, this part, we didn't fully expect that it would completely dissolve. So there is a dissolution committee, and in dissolving in the agreement, each town has a portion as responsible for, so as of June 30th, 2024, there's still going to be what they call run-out claims over a period of time, that per the agreement, each town is responsible for a portion of those run-out claims. In Ayer's case, it's $310,512, which they just determined and unfortunately issued it as an FY24 bill. Barbara's found out that a couple of our fellow towns that have early town meetings have had to either reopen their warrants or are looking to have to do something at town meeting to address this. But this bill has to be paid by June 30th of 2024. So, next slide. So, options. So proposal one, and Kerry verified this this morning with the Department of Revenue. One would be to pay the bill out of the town's free cash. That would require a simple majority vote and an article at this town meeting, which is called the supplemental appropriation. So the DOR said, because we haven't had our town meeting yet, but our free cash is certified and it's an FY24 bill, town meeting could authorize to pay it out of free cash, simple majority. Perhaps the cleanest way and the most transparent way, the downside to consider, of course, is the 310,512, as I had on the earlier side, would reduce our free cash on that front. Second proposal, please. The second proposal would be, and Barbara has verified this with our ARPA consultant. Proposal two would be to pay the bill out of the ARPA funds, which it is eligible for. Pay the total amount. If we did that, that would leave a remaining balance of $113,388 in ARPA. Next. Third scenario is there's the 310,512 that we pay a portion from ARPA, so not the whole bill, but say 210,512. That would leave 213,388 remaining. And then through work that Barbara and Amanda have done, we believe that we could absorb $100,000 in the current FY24 health insurance budget. And if there was the only risk, and I want to use the term risk, is if there was any balance, we would have to go for a reserve fund transfer, which this would meet that criteria because it was unforeseen and it's extraordinary in the sense that you don't generally have a group health purchase group dissolve like this. So We looked at the reserve fund, people have asked, there's 175,000 in the reserve fund right now, but we don't have a clear enough picture yet for the balance of the fiscal year, and it wouldn't cover all of it. So just a couple more slides and then I will stop. So a couple things back. Oh, what did I do here? I'm sorry, gang. This should be, Carly, can you go up one slide? No, to 11. Okay. Let's go back up. I'm sorry. So this is the Minuteman Neshoba Health, proposal. The recommended proposal, potentially, the easiest way would be to use the free cash. However, I think either using free cash subject to town meeting or a combination of free cash and ARPA funds would be in order. And then the second one below that, the 71 Sandy Pond, I think, again, if we use 200,000 from ARPA and 150,000 from UDAG, that would minimize the impact to both of those funds, use some of the ARPA, use some of the UDAG to move forward. And I think that last slide, Carly, is a duplicate. Yeah, you can go back up. So that's sort of where we're at. I think that we need to figure out the funding piece for 71 Sandy Pond and the funding piece for this unforeseen bill. So with that, Mr. Chair, and we can pull up any slides again. I turn it back to you for discussion or questions.
All right, so the overall, just to reiterate, the overall recommendation that's being put forth is we pay the medical portion out of the free cash. And then for the building, or for 71 Sandy Pond, we split it between ARPA and UDAG. So I agree with that approach. Just more kind of looking at it from an aspect of, I think the medical being paid from free cash definitely makes sense because that's town meeting approval. In regards to 71 Sandy Pond, town meeting has skin in the game because of the CPC funding, et cetera. Plus there's the other article that allows the select board to take possession. And then I think the remaining 350 from that, I know the select board will be officially voting on that in the next few weeks. I think any split between ARPA and UDAG at that point will be fine. On the ARPA front, is there anything else that we could potentially spend the money on outside of 71 Sandy Pond? I know we've allocated some off to DPW over the last year or so, but I also know DPW has a lot of projects that are currently going.
So we did check with all departments, and DPW doesn't have anything. I'll add the caveat that Dan always has stuff, but all of the major things that the board has done with ARPA, which is greatly appreciated. He's in good shape. The bridge is in good shape. So yeah, we sort of have this 420 something thousand with 8 months remaining. I mean, one of the options too that we were looking at is you could pay all of the health insurance piece from ARPA and take 100,000 still from the ARPA towards the land. And that would clear up the ARPA, and you wouldn't have to touch the free cash. I mean, we could put the free cash to other purposes if we wanted to forward fund the pension, or if we wanted to further bolster the stabilization.
Okay.
Can I just chime in real quick?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to talk about the spending of the ARPA briefly because I've received multiple advisements from auditors and financial advisors that with the federal clawback, they really are emphasizing to spend this, as sooner than later. And if not spent, to make sure there is a contract that is definitely going to spend the money in writing by December 31st. And the last thing they recommended strongly was that whatever we spend it on, we have to have proper backup documents to prove it because they're going to probably start asking for that. So something like the invoice for the insurance or a land purchase are both good ones because you'll have, something that it went to, whether you're partially paying it with ARPA or fully paying it. You just have to have, just allocating it to something is not going to be good enough to prevent a clawback. So
Okay.
I just wanted to make you aware that there's a lot of talk and discussion about it going on right now.
All right, thank you. So I guess my other question then is in terms of the forward funding of the pension, that is usually 300,000.
Yes.
That's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would, Mr. Chair, I'll just add, and I know there's a lot of options and moving pieces. I think another scenario would be so there's $423,900 remaining in ARPA. If we paid this, the health insurance bill at $310,512, we wouldn't have to use the free cash, and we could forward fund the pension and still have a $10,000 left to put in stabilization. Or if we don't want to forward fund the pension, it's not required, you'd have $310,000 for stabilization. That would leave a balance then of $112,988 in ARPA. You could still put $100,000 from ARPA towards the land. So that'll leave $13,000 remaining in the ARPA account, and then do $250,000, say, from the UDAG, subject to future replenishment. And we've had much larger UDAG projects that have been replenished by town meeting. This $250,000 could be replenished, of all things being equal, within one or maybe
cycles.
two. Yeah. Yeah.
Quick observations. As you went through that, Robert, the one thing that was striking me, since ARPA arose from COVID, American Rescue Plan Act, it almost seems that this health insurance one-time hit would be a natural funding for that. Being funded from that, I think it would just flow. And I really hear what Barbara's saying is that knowing how the Fed can work with other things, if we've got, if we should spend it, let's spend it. And again, the health insurance would be a perfect item. You've got the bill for it, and then the invoice for the town, for the property also. So it's well documented, and it's following the intent, or not, I don't know if intent, but spirit of the bill.
Yeah, both are good options.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like the forward. Again, having been in the business, I can't say enough about forward funding pensions. It's a great thing.
Thank you, Kurt. I think my thought is, so the forward funding is savings to the town on the future state. So if I understand correctly, our stabilization situation is actually very strong. So even though we would be reducing what's going into stabilization for this year, if we can still forward fund the pension, it's saving us more money down the line, which I think it's an investment in the future. So my perspective, kind of along with Kurt, I guess, is, I think using the ARPA funds to pay for the medical bill so that we can forward fund the pension. And then from the select board side of things for 71 Sandy Pond, it comes down to how it wants to be split between UDAG and ARPA funds.
Yeah. I think that is a prudent approach, and I'm glad that we're all talking it through and looking at the options. I think we use the opera to pay this medical piece. It'll allow us to forward fund the pension. And then on the land piece, the 350,000, the board has a couple of options. It could be all UDAG, it could be UDAG and a portion of the remaining ARPA, which will still leave us, I think, a small balance, which is okay at this point.
And I just want to chime in too, if you do want to go use the ARPA towards the medical bill, and I'm very confident we could absorb 100,000 of that in this year's health insurance line. So just keep that in mind of the 300,000.
I guess thinking about impacts on the tax rate, like if we have the money that we can spend that doesn't necessarily impact the tax rate, I would almost lean towards doing that. We're in a strong financial position with stabilization and with overall budget. So, I feel like we're trying to squirrel away $100,000 when the impact to the taxpayer is going to be much more beneficial if we just don't have to spend that, and we can absorb that within ARPA. But ultimately for ARPA and UDAG for 71 Sandy Pond, it comes down to the decision of the select board, but I can speak to them around that.
So in terms of next steps, what we're planning to do is, Barbara and I plan on Tuesday to the select board to give a version of this, abbreviated version of this presentation to bring them up to speed on the situation, because we just got this bill on the medical side. And then we'd be looking towards, obviously with the approval of the warrant coming up on April 2nd quickly, we would want to, by then, at the latest, have this resolved. But it sounds like I'm hearing using, all things being equal, using ARPA for the medical, commitment to forward funding the pension, and then on the land side, it's the purview of the select board. They can either use UDAG and ARPA, or either all UDAG or a UDAG ARPA combo.
Yep. It's a good summary.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Scott. I think that minimizes the impact.
Okay.
And then the last piece that Barbara, just on the health insurance that Barbara had advised me on. So this is the portion, and it's different for each town that, per the agreement, they're going to use the equivalent of this from each of the remaining towns for the runoff claims. And then if there are additional costs, they're going to go to their trust fund. They have this trust fund that was built up over the years. And assuming it'll probably be 30 months from now, we're hearing, right, Barbara?
Up to 30 months from June 30th.
So after 30 months, if there's a balance remaining in their fund balance, it reverts back to the towns. There's still work what that amount would be. So there is a potential, and we don't believe it's going to be some lion's share of funds, but there is a potential when this is 30 months from June 30th, there could be a modest amount coming back to the town, which would just obviously hit free cash.
It would just be miscellaneous one-time income.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Quick question, and I don't want to get too far off topic here. Just stop me short, Robert or Barbara. On this MNHG, I'm just thinking ahead to folks asking questions either at meetings or town meeting. We do have a new insurance carrier.
Yes, it'll be Maya as of July 1st.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, so we do have that. Okay, that's because I'm just thinking that, again, just anticipating. And then the other thing that I'm hearing is Barbara, you're mentioning that we could technically fund some of this bill from our present health budget, which I would understand to mean that we are, again, we're in the midst of it. We're under budget in the health budget.
So it was Robert's slide number 9, where he mentioned paying the 210,512 of the bill from ARPA. And at this point in the game, with the invoices and our analysis that Amanda and I just did, I'm confident that we could absorb 100,000. Health insurance it's a tricky budget line. It's not one of those lines that turns back money every year. They did have a 13.75% increase for fiscal 24. MNHG was behind in some audits and they weren't confident in their fund balances. So they had a larger increase than I think we ended up really needing. So I think we do have a small potential for having some leftover.
Yeah. So yeah, I hear all
In
those
addition to the 100,000.
important caveats, but
Yeah.
again, I'm just thinking ahead, and these are things that to have in your back pocket for town meeting or
Of course.
other meetings is that, one, we do have a new insurance carrier, and we have to spend this money for MNHG, and well, yeah, it is what it is. And by the way, we are doing very well in our overall health insurance budget anyway. We're not over budget, So again,
We're not over budget.
yeah, nothing to, come out and lead with, but it's good to know, to have those facts like I say, in your back pocket.
Yeah, this was, it was not something we knew about a year ago. It was just in December that they decided to dissolve the Minuteman Health Group.
Yeah.
And this was new for everybody on the board and the steering committee at MNHD. They've been around for a long time. So it took them, a couple months to get everything in order. And they did just come out with that invoice in February, the end of February.
Yeah. No one likes a $300,000 surprise, and some
Yeah.
sounds like Groton, and others it's even higher. And as I mentioned earlier, some people have had to reopen the warrants or are looking to do a special town meeting to address this, because a frustrating point, I think, I don't want to speak for you, Barbara, but a frustrating point, at least for me, is that they unleashed this bill in FY24. If there was a way it could have been done for FY25, we could have budgeted and prepared accordingly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because we're, effectively the group's dissolving as of June 30th, 2024.
yeah.
This bill will be a June 2024 bill.
Mhm.
So I agree. Yeah, this is truly something we just couldn't have anticipated.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I think that's all of our discussion on cash and ARPA funds. So let's move on to content for the second public budget forum.
Yes, and just before that, I just want to thank everybody for talking this through in your time. And I'll just convey, it seems like we sort of have what I'll call, all things being equal, sort of a consensus approach. And we'll present this to the select board, and Kurt would be happy to come to FinCom as well. Just quickly, and I know we're coming up on the time. So the second public budget forum is on March 27th. I'm thinking summer, March 27th at 6. And the plan is to sort of to change it up a little bit and to cut to the chase, because we want it's really for the public. We'll use what is draft 3 in advance, and draft 3, as you all know, is pretty much we're at the final point. There's not a lot of variables. We will highlight on draft 3 what's changed, color highlight it from draft 2. So it'll be easy to see, okay, what changed from draft 2. In the presentation, I think, and I'm open to suggestion, we'll cut right to the chase and talk about draft 3, what changed from 2 to 3, quick, overview there. We are would like to use the Clear Glove platform as discussed, and we're working on that, use that for a little, piece of it, and announce that and show a few of those features using FY 25 numbers. Other things that folks think we should touch upon or not touch upon. That's sort of why we put this on the agenda, is just to get any input from you all.
I'm always a big fan of keeping it simple at this point.
Yeah.
Just, you know, what's changed since the last time. The ClearGov definitely is a great vehicle to kind of walk people through what the future will look like, I guess. So, yeah.
And I just wanted this feedback too, and I appreciate this. Historically, on the second form, we did a couple slides and spent just a quick time on both of the schools. However, it's been confirmed, and I'll say this Tuesday night again, at town meeting, both superintendents through the moderator are going to do a brief presentation on their FY 25 budgets. So, I mean, I can have a slide to show the assessments, but I think they've come to the select board and FinCom. They came to the FinCom in addition. The FinCom had Neshoba. I don't think we need to spend much on the schools, but I just wanted to see what folks thought.
I agree. If they're gonna both be there for a brief presentation at town meeting, that's.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I agree. I like your take, Scott. Keep it simple.
Mhm.
The questions, if there's going to be questions, they will come.
Okay. And last question, this is just helpful for me. On the capital front, I mean, in the past, we've always just had a slide, you know, just showing the capital. I'm assuming the same thing because at town meeting, all departments that have capital A are prepared to speak to them. And we know in the DPW's case, he always does a brief presentation. I think that should be sufficient.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Lastly, just related maybe sort of to this, we're going to be putting together a separate web page off of the budget page for the 71 Sandy Pond acquisition that'll have all of the documents in order for the public. And we'll double check. I think we've got everything on capital, on the capital website for the budget. So if you get a chance, just check out the budget page. And if there's something we're missing or what have you, let us know. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. All right, we got about 10 minutes left, excuse me, in the meeting. So next item is scheduling our next meeting. So if we stick on the same cadence, second Thursday of the month, it would be April 11th.
Okay.
Let's see.
I'm fine with that.
It does work for me. I can block my calendar.
I think what we can do, yeah, if it were April 11th, Mr. Chair works, I think the items up for bid, we should talk about briefly the budget book, and the presentation for town meeting.
Okay.
Two of the
That'd be
items.
good timing.
Perfect. All right. That's kind of the end of the agenda. Open up to any questions or comments, everyone, before we adjourn. No? Okay. All right. Then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 2:50.
I'll second.
That.
All
Oh,
right.
there you go.
Roll call the vote. Ms. Antonellis,
Aye.
Ms. Tierney,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper,
Aye.
Mr. Pompriand,
Aye.
Mr. Friskowski,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. We're adjourned. Thanks everyone for your time this afternoon.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Scott.
Have a good one.
Aye.